I want you to picture something for a minute. A scenario that just totally defies the standard laws of biomechanics.
Okay.
Visualize a moment of absolute, uncompromising synergy between a human being and a machine.
Right.
And, I mean, we are not talking about the rather mundane thrill of driving a high-performance saloon car down an empty motorway.
No, of course not. That's totally different.
Exactly. Nor the visceral but, straightforward sensation of wrestling a superbike around a tarmac circuit. We are talking about a literal fusion.
A fusion.
Yes,
Yeah.
a state of being where the boundary between organic flesh and forged steel just entirely dissolves.
Wow.
A split second where, quite literally, your own biological heartbeat and the mechanical pulse of a combustion engine synchronize perfectly.
Well, I mean, it is the absolute holy grail of modern engineering, isn't it?
Spot on.
If you look at the wider automotive and tech industries right now, we are currently watching conglomerates pour billions of pounds into haptic feedback algorithms.
Gyroscopic sensors, right?
Exactly, and incredibly dense digital interfaces. And what is the ultimate aim of all that capital expenditure?
To artificially fabricate that exact feeling.
Spot on, that elusive sensation of oneness. They are desperately trying to write code that makes the machine disappear from the user's consciousness.
Right, because we want the tool to become a literal extension of our own central nervous system.
Exactly.
But today, we are going to explore a narrative where that impossible transcendent synergy was not generated by a microchip.
No.
Or an ECU or, some Silicon Valley software update. It was forged entirely in the dirt.
In the mud and the rocks.
On the jagged, rain-slicked rocks. And within the fiercely dedicated mind of a teenager.
It's an incredible story.
It really is. For this deep dive, we are unpacking a truly fascinating piece of source material. It's an excerpt titled Chapter 2, A Leap Onto the International Stage, the first encounter with Beta and the Awakening of the Soul.
Or, as the text notes, the Anima.
Yes, the Anima.
And I must say, what an extraordinary document we have in front of us.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
It genuinely is. It reads far less like your standard, dry, sporting biography and infinitely more like a modern mythological epic.
Yeah.
I mean, it has the cadence of a classical tragedy and triumph.
It really does. So our mission today is to thoroughly unpack a 12-year saga that reads like a thriller.
A proper thriller.
We are going to track a story of immense generational prodigy, towering ambition, a devastating corporate collapse.
And the reunion.
Yes, a top-secret reunion that right at this very moment is causing a seismic shock to reverberate through the entire motorcycle trials paddock.
It is absolute bombshell news.
Truly. So settle in, because we have a tremendous amount of ground to cover.
Okay.
Let's unpack this properly.
Let's do it.
We need to set the stage by rewinding the clock to the year 2014.
Right.
In 2014, as our text details, a massive, undeniably seismic shock reverberated through the world of trials.
Well, to truly grasp why that seismic shock reverberated with such violence, we must first establish the uncompromising reality of the sport itself.
Good point.
Because, we know you follow the motorsport world, so we won't patronize you with a basic beginner's guide.
Right. No need for that.
But it is crucial to focus on the specific physical demands of trials at the highest international level.
It's brutal.
Brutal is the word. This is an arena of impossible balance. We are talking about navigating a motorcycle up completely vertical, 3-meter rock faces.
Over massive moss-covered boulders.
Exactly. And across treacherous off-camber terrain where a single dab of the foot incurs a penalty.
A single dab.
Just one touch to the ground. It requires a level of precision that is, quite frankly, surgical.
Right. And it's a discipline where a single millimeter of throttle twist.
Or even a fractional shift of a few ounces of body weight through the foot pegs.
Yeah, that dictates whether you clear a jagged precipice or plummet backward down a ravine.
It's incredibly high stakes.
Unforgiving. And into this incredibly unforgiving arena steps a young Basque talent named Jaime Busto.
Jaime Busto. Just a kid at the time.
Exactly. At the time, he is merely 16 years old.
16! Let that sink in.
Right. Yet the highly prestigious Italian marque, Beta, makes the decision to take this unproven kid entirely under their wing.
They did.
They sign him directly to their elite factory works team.
Which, if we examine the politics and the economics of the paddock, is a monumental gamble.
A massive risk.
Huge. You have to appreciate the sheer gravitas of a European marquee like Beta taking a 16-year-old under their wing.
Because it's not just a sponsorship.
No, a factory team in this discipline is not merely a financial sponsor that slaps a decal on your helmet.
Right.
It is a highly guarded, intensely proud engineering family.
Yeah, that Italian passion.
Exactly. When an Italian marquis with the pedigree of Beta brings you into the factory fold, it is not a standard contract negotiation.
It's more than that.
It is a formal adoption. They are grafting this boy into a racing lineage that stretches back decades.
Wow.
They are essentially handing him the keys to their legacy.
But they are handing him something far more tangible than just legacy, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're handing him a very specific weapon.
A bespoke weapon.
Yeah.
To understand exactly why Beta took Jaime Busto under their wing and why his arrival caused such a stir, we have to look meticulously at the machine they placed beneath him.
The steed, as we might call it.
The steed. The source text points us directly to the Beta EVO 2T300.
The EVO 2T300,
Yeah.
merely uttering that alphanumeric designation in a paddock, commands a certain reverence.
I can imagine.
The text gives us some vital, highly specific engineering specifications here.
Let's get into those.
This machine featured a hydroformed aluminum frame,
Okay.
a radically low center of gravity, and a meticulously mass-centralized design architecture.
Now, I want to pause and heavily scrutinize this because I refuse to just gloss over the mechanical engineering as if it's mere marketing jargon.
No, it's absolutely fundamental to the story.
Right. Hydroforming is a fascinating process.
It really is.
Because traditionally, motorcycle frames are constructed by taking extruded pieces of aluminum, bending them in a jig, and TIG welding them together.
That's the standard industry practice.
Yeah, but welding creates heat-affected zones.
Oh, massively.
These inherent stress points and rigid seams where the metallurgical structure of the alloy is fundamentally altered.
And weakened.
Exactly, weakened. But hydroforming completely bypasses this.
It's a totally different approach.
They take a tubular aluminum extrusion, place it inside a negative die, and literally inject high-pressure hydraulic fluid.
Often upwards of 10,000 psi.
10,000 psi. Just forcing the metal to expand from the inside out until it takes the exact shape of the mold.
Precisely. And what's truly fascinating here is the resultant physical behavior of that structure out on the rocks.
How so?
Well, because there are no traditional transverse internal welds breaking up those main structural spar sections.
Right, no rigid joints.
Exactly. The frame possesses a uniform, continuous grain structure. It flexes, it breathes.
It's alive.
In a way, yes. When a rider like Jaime Busto launches the bike up a sheer vertical step and lands a 10-foot drop onto solid granite.
Which is an insane impact.
Right, that hydroformed frame does not simply transfer that kinetic shock directly into his wrists and ankles.
Oh, I see.
It acts as a secondary, highly damped spring. It absorbs and redistributes the kinetic energy in a manner that feels incredibly organic.
So it isn't just a rigid, dead piece of scaffolding.
Not at all. It responds to the terrain.
Which perfectly sets up a specific term the source text uses to define the Beta EVO's character. And it's a word I want us to thoroughly dissect.
Analog.
Yes, analog. The text heavily emphasizes its pure analog nature.
Spelt with a UE, of course.
Of course. When I read that, my mind immediately went to acoustics.
Oh, interesting analogy.
Because if you examine modern digitally assisted performance machines,
Yeah.
whether that is a superbike with 6-axis inertial measurement units, lean angle sensitive traction control, or anti-wheelie software.
Right, all the electronic aids.
Those machines are constantly running thousands of calculations per second.
Just to save you from your own incompetence.
Exactly. They artificially truncate your mistakes.
They do.
It is the motorsport equivalent of a vocalist relying on aggressive auto-tune.
Oh, that is spot on.
You can be entirely off pitch, and the silicon chip snaps you back to the perfect safe note.
That is an exceptionally astute analogy. Modern machinery actively overrides the user.
But an analog machine like the EVO 2T300,
It's different.
that is a master-crafted, purely acoustic guitar.
Yes.
There is absolutely no digital safety net. Nowhere to hide.
None at all.
If your inputs are clumsy, if your throttle control is sloppy, the output is catastrophic.
You don't hit the wrong note, you end up on your back in a riverbed.
Exactly. The purity of the output depends entirely, 100%, on the raw, unfiltered biological skill of the rider.
Indeed. An analog mechanical system possesses a ruthless, one-to-one linear relationship between input and output.
Right.
Let's look at the EVO's two-stroke engine.
Okay, let's break that down.
When you twist the throttle, a physical braided steel cable pulls a brass slide upward inside a carburetor.
A literal cable.
A literal cable. mechanically altering the ratio of ambient air to pre-mixed fuel.
which is then sucked through a reed valve.
Ignited by a spark and violently drives the piston downward.
Wow.
There is no central processing unit stepping in to politely inquire if you really meant to ask for that much torque on a slippery, moss-covered rock.
It doesn't ask.
It simply delivers exactly what your right wrist commanded, violently and instantaneously.
I mean, for an average clubman rider, that level of analog purity is utterly terrifying.
It is a machine that will buck you off instantaneously if you disrespect it.
But for a prodigy,
Ah, right, for a prodigy.
for a 16-year-old prodigy like Jaime Busto, that terrifying analog purity was not a threat.
No.
It was a completely blank canvas.
Exactly.
Let's delve into what he actually achieved with this acoustic guitar of a motorcycle.
Let's look at the numbers.
The year is 2014. He enters the Femmes World Championship Junior class.
Referred to then as the World Cup. Yeah.
And our source text makes it clear that his performance went far beyond mere dominance.
Oh, definitely.
To call his campaign overwhelming would be a drastic understatement.
We must look at the brutal mathematics of that 2014 dominance to appreciate the scale of it.
Hit me with the stats.
He claimed 7 outright victories out of 13 rounds.
7 out of 13.
In a sport where a single momentary loss of concentration.
A microscopic dab of the boot on the ground.
Exactly. Which alters the entire championship leaderboard. Winning more than half the events across a grueling global season is statistically absurd.
It's unreal.
He did not merely win the championship, he reigned absolutely supreme over the entire international field.
He completely demoralized his peers.
He really did.
I want to focus on a beautiful, highly poetic piece of phrasing from the text regarding his specific writing style during that 2014 campaign.
I think I know the one you mean.
It describes him as dancing across the crags.
Brilliant phrasing.
Right. Now, I have pored over the archival footage of those rounds, the slick limestone of the European rounds.
The brutal, jagged sections in the UK.
Yeah, and it genuinely does look like a kinetic dance. He was never wrestling the bike over the obstacle.
No, never wrestling.
He utilized that low center of gravity, meticulously mass-centralized hydroformed frame, as if it were a literal extension of his own spinal cord.
If we connect this visual evidence to the broader picture of biomechanics, we see the absolute vindication of Beta's mass centralization philosophy.
How does that work, practically?
Well, by engineering the heaviest rotating masses of the engine.
So the crankshaft, the clutch basket, the flywheel.
Exactly. By keeping them clustered as tightly as physically possible around the rider's ankles, the inertial moment of the motorcycle is drastically reduced.
Meaning it's easier to move around.
The bike becomes preternaturally flickable. When Jaime Busto twitched his hips or dropped a shoulder, the bike pivoted in the air instantly.
Almost telepathically.
Right. The latency, the delay between his cognitive intent and the machine's physical reaction was reduced to near zero. It ceased to be a 70-kilogram vehicle he was hauling over rocks. It became an appendage he was effortlessly moving.
And that transition from vehicle to appendage brings us to the psychological and frankly philosophical core of this entire deep dive.
This is where it gets really deep.
The dominance on the scorecard was staggering. The metallurgical engineering of the bike was undeniably brilliant.
Yes.
But what transpired inside the neurological pathways of Jaime's mind that year was infinitely more profound.
It really was.
And it is the absolute key to comprehending the subsequent 12 years of this saga.
You are referring to the quote, I assume.
I am.
The singular statement that ultimately defined his destiny.
Yes. The source material specifically notes that what truly etched itself into the collective consciousness of the trials paddock.
Even more than his record-breaking tally of victories.
The words spoken by the 16-year-old to the press.
Right.
He stated, and I quote verbatim, "This machine has a soul, Anima. My own heartbeat and the heartbeat of the Beta are melting into one."
It is an incredibly heavy, almost esoteric statement to come from a teenager covered in mud.
Now, hold on. I must push back here.
Oh.
I have to play the skeptic. When I first read that quote, the cynic in me flared up immediately.
Naturally.
It is so incredibly easy to dismiss this as the dramatic, highly romanticized, PR-friendly sentiment of a teenager who is riding a massive high of adrenaline and endorphins.
Because he's just demolished the global field.
Exactly. He is 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he believes his dirt bike has a magical soul.
Right, right.
He's essentially describing a Hollywood script.
Sure.
Is there any actual rigorous biomechanical or neurological truth to this sensation of an anima, a literal soul residing within the machine.
I understand the cynicism, I really do. But what is genuinely fascinating here is that top-tier sports psychologists and cognitive neuroscientists would actually validate that 16-year-old's empirical feeling.
Wait, really? They would validate the idea of a machine having a soul?
Well, they would utilize vastly different clinical vocabulary to describe it, obviously. But when an elite world-class athlete spends thousands upon thousands of hours physically interacting with a highly responsive, purely analog tool,
Like the EVO.
The brain's parietal lobe fundamentally alters how it maps the physical world.
Okay, I'm listening.
It genuinely stops mapping the tool as an external, separate object.
Wait, are you suggesting his brain literally redrew its own anatomical map?
Precisely.
That's insane.
In neurology, it is referred to as tool embodiment via proprioceptive extension.
Proprioceptive extension.
Yes. Consider a blind individual utilizing a white cane.
Okay.
After sufficient use, they do not feel the leather handle of the cane pressing into their palm.
Really? They don't feel the handle?
No, their brain extends their sensory perception directly to the plastic tip of the cane scraping against the pavement.
Oh, wow. So the tip of the cane becomes their new fingertip.
Spot on. The cane becomes part of their body schema.
That is incredible.
So for Jaime Busto, the physical feedback loop, the sensation of the rubber tires gripping the microscopic pores of a rock.
Traveling upward through the resonant frequency of that hydroformed aluminum frame.
Exactly. Into the handlebars and directly into his hands and feet. It was so instantaneous, so uninterrupted by any digital ECU interference.
Because it's pure analog.
Because it's pure analog. His brain mapped the Beta EVO as an integral part of his own physical form.
That is staggering.
It is.
So when he uses that poetic language, when he says the body of steel, his mechanical steed and his own body of flesh and blood achieved a perfect fusion.
He isn't just waxing lyrical for an Italian journalist.
He is accurately describing a profound neurological reality.
He is. The text refers to this state as synchro.
Synchronicity.
Synchronicity. When that biomechanical feedback loop reaches a state of absolute perfection, when it is unpolluted by silicon chips second-guessing the writer, the machine feels alive.
It anticipates.
It reacts. It feels like a sentient entity that desires exactly what you desire.
It transcends being a mere collection of alloy and rubber.
It becomes the anima. It becomes a living, breathing steed.
And logically, you would assume that finding your anima, achieving that mythical state of perfect synchro, and utterly dominating the World Cup would be the neatly wrapped conclusion of the story.
You'd think so.
The prodigy and the marque, riding off into the sunset with a trophy cabinet full of gold.
The perfect ending.
But because he achieved such an absolute terrifying mastery so rapidly, the junior class simply could no longer contain him.
It was too small for him.
His drive for ultimate greatness, the hunger to conquer the premier TrialGP class, led to an incredibly painful, heartbreaking separation.
Ambition is a notoriously powerful, often ruthless force.
It really is.
And within the highest echelons of elite motorsport, ambition very rarely tolerates sentimentality or romance.
So true. Let's transition into the next highly turbulent phase of this saga.
Let's do it.
Immediately after clinching that 2014 title, still riding the immense high of this supposed fusion of souls, Jaime makes a move that drops jaws across the paddock.
A total shocker.
For the 2015 season, he completely severs ties with Beta and signs with rival manufacturer Repsol Honda.
The magnitude of this transfer cannot be overstated to anyone who follows the sport.
It was huge.
Leaving a boutique, fiercely passionate Italian marque like Beta to join Repsol Honda is a massive paradigm shift.
Because Honda is, well, it's Honda.
Right. Honda, particularly the HRC, the Honda Racing Corporation division, is the absolute undisputed juggernaut of the global motorsport arena.
Yeah.
It is a massive, clinically corporate, infinitely resourced engineering operation.
And crucially, the text notes he was being directly promoted to the premier TrialGP class.
The big leagues.
On paper, to a manager and accountant, the move makes perfect, unassailable sense.
Of course it does.
I liken it to a brilliant, once-in-a-generation violinist who abandons the small, intimate hometown instructor who taught them to play with raw feeling.
Right. The second they receive a lucrative contract offer from the London Symphony Orchestra.
Exactly. It's the big leagues. You cannot say no.
You really can't.
It is the classic agonizing tension between maintaining a profound, almost spiritual connection to your analog roots
Versus the ruthless, pragmatic pursuit of career progression and financial stability.
This specific juncture raises an incredibly important philosophical question about the fundamental nature of athletic progression.
It does. Do you remain in the environment where your soul, your anima, is nurtured and understood?
Or do you migrate to the sterile environment where the performance ceiling is theoretically higher and the budget is limitless?
He chose the higher ceiling.
He did.
And frankly, as an analyst, you cannot blame him.
No, not at all.
To be recognized as a true champion, you must test your mettle against the absolute best riders on the planet, on the biggest, most heavily scrutinized stage.
I completely agree with the logic. But we must discuss the engineering reality of what he stepped onto.
The Montesa.
Honda's TrialGP machine, the Montesa Coda 4RT,
Yeah,
is a completely different beast to his Beta.
night and day.
It is a four-stroke engine.
Right.
It has massive engine braking, a heavier curb weight, completely different rotational inertia, and heavily programmed fuel injection.
It is a brilliant championship-winning machine, undoubtedly.
Right.
But it is not the free-revving, purely analog acoustic guitar he grew up on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He traded the Anima for aerospace-grade precision,
He did.
and the fallout from that shock move was immense. The text discusses how the public, the fans, and the pundits reacted.
People were heartbroken.
The consensus was unanimous.
Yeah.
The beautiful, poetic story of the Basque prodigy and the Italian marque was permanently closed.
Done and dusted.
The Anima was left behind in the dirt for the sake of climbing the corporate ladder.
And historically within the paddock, that is exactly how these narratives conclude.
Oh, really? It rarely goes the other way.
It is exceedingly, almost impossibly rare for an elite athlete to return to their roots once they have tasted the premier class and the immense salaries provided by a massive rival manufacturer.
Because of the politics.
Politics? Absolutely. Bridges are typically burned, proprietary engineering secrets are fiercely guarded, and sheer human pride gets in the way.
Makes sense.
The entire industry naturally assumed Jaime Busto would spend the remainder of his professional career operating as a highly paid mercenary.
Bouncing between the highest bidders.
Exactly. Relentlessly chasing titles on whatever machine was put beneath him.
But fate, as our source text so ominously and beautifully points out, had a far grander, much more complex design in mind.
It certainly did.
Because to reunite this rider with his long-lost Anima, to bring him back to that analog steed,
Yeah.
it was never going to be as simple as his manager making a polite phone call and negotiating a new contract over coffee.
No, definitely not.
The very financial foundations of the motorcycle industry had to violently shake.
Which brings us directly to the harsh corporate realities and economic turbulence of the modern motorsport era.
Let's fast forward a decade.
A full 10 years. Let's make that jump.
We skip ahead through 10 long years of grinding, evolving, suffering injuries, and growing into a seasoned veteran in the premier TrialGP class.
A lot changes in a decade.
Absolutely. We arrive at the bitter end of 2025. Jaime is no longer a wide-eyed 16-year-old.
He is a fully matured, battle-hardened 28-year-old man.
And he is currently riding for a manufacturer named GASGAS.
Now, GASGAS is a highly respected, historically significant brand within the off-road sector.
Right.
But in the modern era, it operates under the umbrella of a much larger, sprawling corporate conglomerate.
Okay.
And at the tail end of 2025, our source text details a period of intense, catastrophic turbulence.
Corporate turbulence.
Due to highly complex financial circumstances involving their overarching parent company, GASGAS abruptly and completely ceases operations.
Wow, they just pulled the plug.
They pulled the plug on the factory racing program entirely.
I want you to just imagine the psychological impact of that for a moment.
It's massive.
The music simply stops without warning.
It is utterly devastating. Consider the reality. You have one of the greatest, most finely honed athletic talents in the world.
A rider in the absolute undeniable prime of his physical capabilities and cognitive processing.
Suddenly thrown into an absolute void.
Nothing left.
He has no mechanics. He has no team awning. He has no machine.
That's brutal.
In elite top-tier motorsport, an abrupt factory closure of this magnitude can, and frequently does, end careers overnight.
Really? Just like that?
Just like that. There are only a handful of premier-class factory seats available globally.
Right, it's a tiny club.
Exactly. When one disappears, the game of musical chairs stops, and someone is left standing in the cold.
Yet, the text paints a very different picture of his reaction.
It does.
It states that amidst this dark, freezing winter of professional uncertainty, Jaime makes a quiet but resolute decision.
A resolute decision.
He doesn't panic. He doesn't announce his retirement.
Right.
He doesn't beg another corporate giant for a test ride. He knows exactly, deep in his bones, what he has to do.
He always knew.
And then on the 20th of March, 2026,
This is the moment.
absolute bombshell news hits the global motorsport press.
It was the press release that absolutely no one in the paddock saw coming.
Not a single person.
It caught every single pundit and journalist completely off guard.
The brief, punchy announcement from Beta simply reads, Jaime Busto returns to the Beta factory team for the 2026-2027 season.
Wow.
Now, I have to say, this is where the narrative stops being a sports story and becomes high art.
It's poetic.
Think about the sheer poetry of that timeline, 2014 to 2026.
Exactly 12 years later.
The former 16-year-old prodigy returns.
Yes.
But as the text so brilliantly notes, he doesn't return as a frightened, unemployed boy begging for his old job back.
Far from it.
He returns as a fully fledged king, marching back to the exact place where his anima still resides.
And that specific framing by the author is absolutely critical to understanding the weight of the move.
Tell me more about that.
This is not simply a pragmatic writer scrambling to find a new employer after a sudden corporate layoff.
It's not just business.
No. This is not a marriage of convenience to keep his sponsors happy.
Right.
It is a profound, almost spiritual homecoming. The text explicitly describes it as the fulfillment of a solemn contract sworn 12 years prior.
Wow.
When that 16-year-old boy stood in the mud in 2014 and declared that his heartbeat had melted into the Beta,
Yeah.
that was not a fleeting adrenaline-fueled emotion. It was an ironclad promise that remained dormant, waiting patiently for over a decade.
I know I complained about the romanticism earlier, but even I have to admit,
It's cute, right?
it is akin to a knight pulling his original forged sword back out of the stone after a decade in exile.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Reclaiming his steed.
But, and this is the crucial pivot in our deep dive, this return isn't merely an exercise in motorsport nostalgia.
Oh, definitely not.
Beta and Busto were not getting back together to sell retro t-shirts, print vintage posters, and reminisce about the good old days of the Junior World Cup over a pint.
No, there's a very clear objective here. Yeah.
Exactly. This reunion is a highly calculated, heavily armed, and totally top-secret mission to conquer the one singular mountain Jaime has yet to summit in his career.
Because in TrialGP, there is always a mountain.
Always.
There is always an obstacle, an adversary that appears entirely insurmountable to mere mortals.
Which leads us directly to the unveiling of the true underlying purpose of this entire 12-year saga.
Here we go.
Project Beta Synchro.
Project Beta SINCRO.
The text explicitly connects that innocent 16-year-old's quote about melting into one directly to this massive, highly funded 2026 engineering endeavor.
If we connect this current development to the bigger picture we've been painting,
Yeah,
it fundamentally alters how we view that entire 2014 season.
how so?
The source material strongly suggests that the magical fusion of souls 12 years ago wasn't just a beautiful, isolated moment in sporting history.
Okay.
It was the literal data-driven origin point. It was the rough draft of a master plan.
A rough draft for what exactly? Are we talking about a new chassis? A new engine map?
It's bigger than that.
Bigger.
We are talking about a completely new paradigm of machine-rider interface.
Oh.
The engineering department at Beta has had 12 years to meticulously study the telemetry.
The data from 2014.
Exactly. The chassis geometry, the suspension linkage ratios, and the biomechanics of exactly what made Jaime Busto so utterly untouchable on their hydroformed frame.
They saved all of that.
They have been quietly archiving that perfect analog synchronicity.
That's incredible foresight.
And now, under Project SINCRO, they are combining his fully matured 28-year-old physical strength and vast premier class experience
It's what?
with a bespoke machine designed explicitly from the ground up around that original biological data.
So it's custom built just for his neurology.
Exactly. They're not building a bike for the general market.
Right.
They are building a biomechanical extension of one specific man. The text states they are aiming for a realm previously untouched by man.
Untouched by man.
Yes.
That is a phrase that is equal parts terrifying and exhilarating. It really is. But we have to ask, who is all of this extraordinary effort for?
The target.
Right. Why dedicate millions of euros and a top-secret project to aim for a realm untouched by man?
The answer is brutally simple.
Because the realm currently touched by man is owned entirely and exclusively by one person.
The absolute champion.
The absolute champion, the final unbeatable boss of motorcycle trials.
Toni Bou, or as we must pronounce it, Toni Bou.
Toni Bou.
Yes, Toni Bou is an absolute anomaly, not just in trials, but in the entire history of global sport.
Really? In all of sports?
Absolutely. We casually toss around the word dominant to describe athletes who win 3 or 4 titles.
Right, like a dynasty.
But his record is, frankly, absurd. He's an impenetrable wall.
Wow.
He has entirely defined and dictated the modern era of trials riding. He is the metric, the absolute standard by which all mechanical and human perfection is currently measured in the paddock.
Now, you have to explain to me, because this is where the physics of the sport truly matter.
Let's get into the physics.
We've talked about Busto's kinetic, flowing dancing style on the analog two-stroke.
Yes, the dance.
How does Toni Bou ride? What makes him an impenetrable wall?
Well, Toni Bou rides the 4-stroke Montesa Honda.
Right, the 4RT.
Exactly. His technique is built on brute, calculated, explosive perfection.
Explosive perfection.
She utilizes the massive low-end torque of that 4-stroke engine to perform entirely static rear wheel hops.
Static hops.
He doesn't flow through a section, he stops time.
He just stopped.
He balances perfectly still on the rear tire, compresses the suspension, dumps the clutch, and violently launches the motorcycle upwards from a dead stop.
And lands exactly where he wants to.
Landing with pinpoint, microscopic accuracy.
That sounds terrifyingly efficient.
It is a robotic, clinical, utterly flawless display of static potential energy being converted into vertical lift.
Wow.
It leaves absolutely zero room for error, and he simply never makes one.
So he has essentially perfected the digital, highly calculated modern style of riding. I found myself going back into the archives and re-examining that 2014 footage of Jaime after reading the details of this Synchro project. And the author of our text is dead right. Looking at that 16-year-old boy's eyes.
Staring down a massive vertical rock face in Scotland.
Yeah, it genuinely gives you goosebumps today. Because with the context of 2026, you realize what was actually happening in that footage.
What exactly do you see when you watch that old footage now, armed with this new context?
I see the blueprint for the assassination of a king.
Oh, brilliant.
All right. I see the realization that you absolutely cannot beat a dominant, flawless champion like Toni Bou by adhering to standard career progression.
You can't out-Honda Honda.
Exactly. You cannot beat him by simply moving to a bigger corporate team, getting a bike with 2 more horsepower, and tweaking your digital traction control.
No, you'd just be a lesser version of him.
If you try to play Toni Bou's game of calculated static perfection, he will crush you.
Because he is the master of it.
He is. To tear down a wall like that, you need a completely different weapon.
A different paradigm.
You need to resurrect the kinetic dance. You need a perfect, supernatural union of flesh, bone, and hydroformed steel.
You need the Anima.
You need a 12-year prophecy to come to fruition.
This raises an incredibly poignant point about the nature of true innovation and disruption in sports.
How so?
Well, sometimes the only viable method to dethrone the unbeatable champion isn't to play their specific game 5% better than they do.
Right.
It is to fundamentally change the entire nature of the game itself.
To rewrite the rules.
Exactly. If Toni Bou represents the absolute zenith of modern clinical 4-stroke execution,
Which he does.
then Project Beta Synchro represents a violent return to something wilder, something older.
Wow.
It is the act of weaponizing the Anima.
Weaponizing the soul. What a brilliant way to phrase it.
It's essentially what they're doing.
They are taking that raw, unfiltered, completely analog connection from his youth and refining it with 12 years of brutal premier-class warfare. I want to take a breath and just recap this incredible narrative arc for a moment, because as a piece of dramatic tension, it is simply a masterclass.
It really is.
We began in the pure, unadulterated analog days of 2014. A young boy and his hydroformed steed dancing on the rocks.
The age of innocence, almost.
Yeah. We then witnessed the separation, the incredibly painful yet totally necessary sacrifice of the soul for the sake of raw ambition.
Financial reality.
And the crucible of the premier class at Honda.
We watched him endure the sudden, brutal corporate collapse of GASGAS.
That left our hero utterly stranded in the professional wilderness.
A true dark night of the soul.
And finally, the bombshell news of 2026. The king returns to his Anima, armed with a top-secret machine to face the ultimate giant of the sport.
It serves as a stark, powerful reminder that the path to true historical greatness is almost never a straight, unbroken upward trajectory on a corporate graph.
It's messy.
It mandates detours, profound heartbreak, years of grinding in the wilderness, and sometimes a necessary humble return to the exact place where the magic first sparked.
Exactly. And that thought is exactly what I want to ask you, the listener, to deeply reflect on right now.
It's a great question to ask.
As we unpack the staggering story of Jaime Busto, the Beta EVO, and Project Synchro, I want you to examine your own life.
Look at your own trajectory.
Is there an anima in your life right now? Is there a perfect, beautiful synchronicity of passion and tool?
Perhaps a specific creative outlet.
Or a visceral type of hands-on work?
A tight-knit community, maybe?
Or just a raw, unfiltered project that you deliberately walked away from?
Did you leave your own analog steed behind?
Because society, or your own ambition, convinced you that you needed to pursue standard career progression.
Or step up to the sterile premier class of adult corporate responsibilities.
Right. And if you did, might you be destined one day when the corporate machinery fails you to return to it?
It is a profoundly challenging question.
It really is.
In our modern society, we are intensely conditioned to believe that moving forward always dictates moving away from our past.
We really are.
We believe progress requires acquiring more complex tools, thicker digital layers, and massive corporate backing.
We assume the analog is dead.
Exactly. We assume it's obsolete.
Which brings us perfectly to our final provocative thought for this deep dive.
Let's hear it.
We so often view technology, and indeed the trajectory of our own lives, as moving forward in a rigid, straight line.
Getting progressively more digital.
More layered, more insulated, more complex.
Yeah.
But what if the ultimate reality-shattering leap forward in human performance doesn't actually come from writing a better line of code?
Or installing a faster microchip.
What if the absolute secret to breaking through the impossible, unbeatable barrier in your life is reconnecting with the raw, unfiltered analog soul of your own past?
Wow.
What actually happens out there on the rocks when a 28-year-old king finally rides with the fearless, utterly synchronized soul of his 16-year-old self?
I suppose the entire motorsport world is about to find out quite violently on the rocks of the 2026 season.
I know I will be glued to the paddock to watch it unfold.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking for the anima in the machinery of your own life, and maybe, just maybe, see if you can strip away the digital noise and sync your heartbeat to it once again. Until next time.
Listen, can you feel the seismic shock? 2014, the world starts to rock. Italian marque taking me under the wing. Italian steel making the spirit sing. Anima, take the soul. Beta EVO 300 two-stroke beast. Analogue character, let the power be released. 7 wins in the cup, straight fire, no lie. Reigning supreme while the rebels wonder why. Jaime Busto, kid is moving like a ghost. From the Basque crags to the faraway coast. Oh, anima, anima, heartbeat melting as one. Anima, the fusion has begun by your steel body of flesh and blood. Synchro energy rising like a flood. Beta in the veins, yeah, we're never done. Shock move 15, aiming for the top. Repsol Honda, yeah, the grind doesn't stop. But fate had a design far more grand. And the 25 chaos in the land. Gas gone, but the king is coming home. 2026, no more need to roam. Anima, anima, heartbeat melting as one. Anima, the fusion has begun by your steel body of flesh and blood. Synchro energy rising like a flood. Beta in the veins, yeah, we're never done. Tell news March 20, 26, back to the factory, getting the synchro fits. It is a contract of the soul sworn long ago. The anima is calling and I'm ready to go. There's a tree on the block, check the spinal cord. Beta synchro, the weapon and the lord. Yeah, blueprint is waiting, Listen, can you feel the seismic shock? 2014, the world starts to rock. Italian marque taking me under the wing. Italian steel making the spirit sing. Anima, check the soul. Beta EVO 302 stroke beast. Analogue character, let the power be released. 7 wins in the cup, straight fire, no lie. Rated supreme, while the rivals wonder why. Jaime Busto, kid is moving like a ghost. From the Basque cracks to the faraway calls. Anima, anima, heartbeat melting as one. Anima, anima, the fusion has begun. Body of steel, body of flesh and blood. Synchro, energy, rising like a flood. Beta in the veins, yeah, we're never done. Shock move 15, aiming for the top. Repsol Honda, yeah, the grind doesn't stop. We're fading the design, far more grand. End of 25, chaos in the land. Gas, gas gone, but the king is coming home. 2026, no more need to roam. Anima, anima, heartbeat melting as one. Anima, the fusion has begun. Body of steel, body of flesh and blood. Synchro energy rising like a flood. Beta in the veins, yeah, we're never done. Never, never done. Shell News, March 20, year 26. Back to the factory, getting the synchro fix. It is a contract of the soul. Sworn long ago, the Anima is calling, and I'm ready to go. Wizardry on the rocks. Hey, hey, hey. Check the spinal cord, Beta SINCRO. The weapon and the lure. Hey. Hey. Ready to topple the king. Toni Bou, yeah, we're entering in. 12 years later, the prophecy is real.